Beginning current Daf Mesech Sotah Daf in 5 lines down at the top of the Yomit. The Gemara continues the discussion from the previous Daf regarding the halacha in our Mishnah. We were mentioning by different teachings that were taught by Elazar and Azariah, which became the Nasi, which meant Rabbi Shloimy, that there was an increase of students on that day. So the actually interestingly, I heard when I spoke on this last Sunday. So one of the other speakers was, I think Rabbi Jacobson said it. He said that Rabbi Shloimy, when we got to Darshan, we saw the instead of a Maseh was once by a Rebbe, and everyone left when he got up to speak. He said, "Yeah, jetzt verstehe, was ist gesagt in die Gemara, Rabbi Shloimy." So Asach Benklich is dort gewesen, was everyone left when they got up to Darshan, and everyone emptied out. So there's a lot more benches than people. But on that day, there was many different drushes, and one of the drushes was from Rabbi Kiva, and he said that you could even have a tikar sheni oisa shlishi by a chur. So that's how Gemara is going to discuss many different tanoim that disagree with this principle, and they hold that no, ain't sheni oisa shlishi by chur. Sure, close by the Kaltek and the Chesed turn to Daf. The time I'm doing today's Daf. So we're discussing today's Daf are, like we mentioned, if a sheni oisa shlishi b'chulim, could chulim become a shlishi? What's the halacha of someone who eats a food out of the tummy? How do you take a challah from a dough that's tummy? Because halacha is when you make a dough a certain amount, you have to separate challah into the kind. Problem is, you're not allowed to make challah, which is truma tummy, but you have to separate it. So how do you do it in that situation? The halacha, what we mentioned in the Mishnah on Migdash Ari Leviyim, regarding the open area space of the Levite cities, how much of it is it, and when it's 1,000 or 2,000, Az Yasher, of the drushes from the Az Yasher, and the difference between Oid Mahav and Yira regarding those who serve God out of love and out of fear. The beginning of our Daf Lamed 5 on Daf Yomi, like we mentioned in the Mishnah, that Rabbi Kiva had said, Sheni is Shlish B'chulin. That's why Yeshua says, Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, you said that Ein Sheni is Shlish B'chulin. What do you mean? Rabbi Kiva even says it's by Chulin. So now Gemara brings, Amar Rav Asim Rav, Amar some say Rav ben Isi Amar Rav, that Remeir, Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Eliezer, these 5 Tanoim, Kula Svilu, they all hold the Ein Sheni Oisa Shlishi B'chul. Now, like the Kiva, a Sheni cannot make a Shlishi by Chulin. The Gemara is going to go through in detail each one of these 5 Tanoim to show that they don't hold that Chulin can become a Shlishi. Remeir did not. The first Tana is Remeir, the Mishnah says is part. Mishnah says, Kala Toin Bias Mayim. Whoever requires going into the mikvah, midivrei seifim from rabbinic law, meaning biblically he's taught, but the Chum required that he has to go into the mikvah to purify himself. For example, when the Rabban requires him to go to the mikvah, what's called reisha berubai b'mayim shuvim. Someone had the majority of his body and his head in drawn waters. As the morning says, the Shabbos explains the reason for this because of confusion. If you think that's going to purify, not the mikvah, many different. If somebody eats a half a pras of a quarter of a loaf of bread, food of that's tummy, or his yadayim, which generally are considered tummy, which the Rabban required tefillah, and these are rabbinically required. So mitami es hakodesh. So anyone that rabbinically requires tefillah, so that contaminates kudshim to become a shlishi, meaning, like we said yesterday's Daf, the difference between tummy and puzzle. Tummy means that this could also contaminate something else, and puzzle means that this itself becomes something that cannot further it. So what I'm saying is, with the kodesh, it makes the kachim into a shlishi. So essentially, we're considering this thing rabbinically requires to be like a sheni. It makes kachim into a shlishi. Who places less a truma, and it meaning since you're a sheni, you can make the kachim into a shlishi, which will then make something else into a refi. And you can invalidate truma because again, truma only gets to a shlishi. And however, this thing that's like again like a sheni, because only rabbinically requires tefillah, is permitted to for chulin and meiser. So you see clearly that a mayor holds because chulin does not become a shlishi. This person rabbinically requires tefillah. He's going to be mitame kachim, which makes kachim into a shlishi, then which will then contaminate something else to a refi. It's poisel truma if truma can become a shlishi, but it's mut the b'chul the ma'isa. So you see that chulin chulin does not become a shlishi according to Rabbi. Now, Chachamim based in the meiser, Chachamim would say it's forbidden with a meiser for eating. As Rashi points out, touching is permitted, but chulin even for eating is permitted. And that's what the Gemara says in the Chazman base. Now, so based on this, the truth is, also according to the Rabbanan, Sheni does not make a shlishi by chulin. It's only they're disagreeing regarding meiser. Why then didn't Rav say in the list of the 5 Tanam a 6th one, the Chachamim? Says Rashi very simply because it doesn't say who they are. And when we say Reb Meir of the 5, Mitzvah Meir, Umachlukusai, those who disagree with them, they also agree that Sheni does not become a shlish of a chulin. They just disagree regarding could a Sheni eat meiser in that rabbinic tomb. Okay, that's Tana number 1. Tana number 2, Rabbi Yasi, Odamana. This is what we said in the previous daf. There's a little bit of a complex cheshbon, but if you remember yesterday's daf, you'll remember what we're saying right now. What's the proof that Rabbi Yasi holds that a sheni does not make a shlish b'chulin? It says the im say if it would be true that shlishi would make chulin, that chulin would become a shlishi b'natayra, then leisei l'revi b'truma. Then you should say truma could become a revi. Why? Like Rashi explains, from a kaval from Tvul Yomi. Because yesterday in the previous daf we had mentioned that how do we know that truma becomes a shlish? We had said from a kaval because from the sheni chulin, so truma becomes a shlishi. So if you would say that chulin can become a shlishi, so that should make truma becoming a revi. And then you should also say, this is a separate step, you should say that kachim could become a chemishi, because from the fact that truma could become a revi. Why? Because we had a different kabbalah I mentioned previous about on the chusi kipurim, which that was the source how we said that from the fact that truma becomes a shlishi, then kachim becomes a revi. So if it would be true that chulin could become a shlishi, then you should have had to say according to Rabbi Yasi, which no one says, that truma could become a revi and kachim could become a chamishi. The fact that it doesn't say that, obviously based on his own kabbalah from the previous daf, we see that he holds that no chulin becomes a sheni. Therefore, that's why we started kabbalah that truma could become a shlishi. Because he said, say dayu, we say don't say dayu, because then that refutes all the kabbalah. And then another one, which you're okay for truma, but you weren't good from kachim. Oh, you see that kachim makes you take one step further from the chusi kipurim. So truma can become a shlishi. Oh, so kachim become a revi. What do you mean? Truma should be a revi based on the tzvul yoyim kabbalah, and then kachim should be kamishi based on the chusi kipurim kabbalah. So we see that no, that he holds that chulin only becomes a sheni, not a shlishi. That's Tana number 2. Tana number 3, Rabbi Shloimy. It's not a good Mishnah set this Tanas. Mishnah says, Rabbi Leza Oimer. This is again a little bit complex because we bring in many of these tumas, concepts, which is obviously related to this halacha that we're saying that they don't hold that chulin can become a shlishi of tumah. So the Mishnah says like this. Rabbi Leza says, so eichel, if someone eats, and when we're talking about eating over here, we mean a half a pras. A pras means a half of a loaf of bread. And Talmudic times, a loaf of bread had 2 meals worth. Half of a loaf is 1 meal's worth. That's a pras. A half a pras is a quarter of a loaf, half of a half. So we're talking about a quarter of a loaf of bread, which is a half of a meal. If someone eats a half of a loaf of oichel rishon, meaning a food item, that's a rishon l'toma. A dead sheretz touched this loaf of bread. Oh, so then this person's body becomes a rishon. Rabbinically, the person himself becomes a rishon l'toma. Now, if someone eats a food item that's a sheni, his body becomes a sheni. If he eats a shlishi, he becomes a shlishi. Now, the Gemara Masechet School explains the reason for this, that we making the one who's eating as stringent as the food item that he's eating. The Gemara Daf Lamadal Chum explains why that would be. But that's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Shloimy, who we want to bring as the source, that ain't sheni oisa shlishi b'kulim, he says like this. He says, or v'eichel sheni, he disagrees. He says that you either way become a sheni. As Rashi explains, that the food item that's a rishon does not make the one who eats it into a rishon, but a sheni. Because the one who eats it is not as stringent as the food that he's eating. But the Michael Sheni does make him into a sheni. And the Gemara explains why that is, because the Maisa, we do find that a sheni can make a sheni. In the general transmission of Tumah, it always goes a step lower. A sheni could make a sheni through mashka. Why is it unique halacha with mashka? That mashka actually becomes a rishon. So you could have a sheni make another thing a sheni. It's not so unique, because if that sheni touches mashka, the mashka becomes a rishon, and then that makes that other thing into a sheni. So a sheni could make a sheni. So therefore, we'll make the person also into a sheni, even though the food is a sheni. Now, shlishi, someone eats a third level tumah, his body becomes a sheni b'kodesh. What does it mean? It becomes a sheni regarding kachim. If this person who ate the shlishi l'tumah is going to touch kachim, he's going to make the kachim tamei. What does it mean? Makes it tamei? Essentially, making like into a shlishi, because then that kachim can now make something else possible. So essentially, if this guy is eating a shlishi, we're making, in regards to kachim, making like a sheni, a kachim. The ain't sheni b'truma, but we don't say that it's a sheni regarding truma. The Gemara there explains the reason for that. And again, all these tumas Rashi explains are all rabbinic. So for truma, we're not going to consider them as a sheni. Now, explains the Mishnah. Which chulin are we talking about? That we're saying that if you eat a shlishi, you become a sheni regards to kachim, is b'chulin shenaso tadas truma. The chulin that was made with the purification level that you have for truma. What does that mean? So Rashi explains. The owner of this produce is a claim. Now, he's accustomed to obviously eating truma. So he's makabel on himself that he needs all his, even his chulin in the Torah of truma. Because you have to be Torah when you eat your truma. Chulin you don't have to, but you confuse the pusa with the chulin, the chulin, it gets confusing. We're always going to be Torah when we're eating our food, even our chulin, so that he should be accustomed to eat his truma in the state of Torah that he needs to. So therefore, we could find a shlishi by chulin if it was made in the tahara of truma. Oh, like so Rashi explains, obviously other chulin cannot become a shlishi. That's important. Al taharas truma in. So then the Gemara Stam makes a different deal, which is not the main point that we really want. The main point we want is this point that we just said, that you see that a sheni cannot become a chulin cannot become a shlishi. The Mishnah itself has to explain to you where could you have this case that I just described to you, that the person will be eating a shlishi and for kachim will consider like a sheni, which chulin could become a shlishi? But regular chulin doesn't become a shlishi. Truma can become a shlishi. So the chulin will consider as a shlishi l'tumah, but regular chulin cannot be. So that's the source where we see Rabbi Shua holds ain't sheni is a shlishi l'tumah. But then the Gemara just makes the dik. Al taharas truma in this halacha was that if you made the chulin on the Torah of truma, al taharas hakodesh loy, meaning because if you made it on the Torah of kachim, we treat it like regular chulin. Why? Like Rashi explains, if you're going to try to treat chulin on the Torah of ekdish, but l'daita, and the image of chulin, people don't treat their chulin like the level of kachim. So you're not a rebbe. You know, don't try to treat your treat ataras but that makes sense because you tell many people can't. But ataras hektish, you don't. So therefore, again, we're going to treat like regular chulin, and therefore, says the Gemara al muksaba. Obviously, we see he holds that ain't sheni oisish nishba, and that's why when you do ataras like kodesh, it's not going to have the halacha of a shlishi because we'll treat it like regular chulin. Regular chulin is not become a shlishi. Ataras truma, okay, that makes sense. But then we're going to give it the halacha of truma to become a shlishi. That was Tana number 3. Tana number 4, Rabbi Lazar, that he holds ain't sheni oisish nishba chulin the time we go in the brisa. Rabbi Lazar, he says shloshtam. These 3 that we're going to explain, meaning the tumah of a rishon, whether it be a chulin, whether it be a truma, whether it be a kachim, they're all shavim, they're all the same. What? So like the Bryce explained. A rishon shebakayis, a rishon l'tumah that's kachim, or v'shebachulin or unconsecrated, or v'shebachulin truma, they all have the same halacha, which is mitam shnayim. They're going to contaminate 2 things. And they're going to invalidate one, because, meaning that's a Revi. If you're a Rishon, the Tumah, whether you're Chulin, whether you're Truma, wherever you are, this inanimate object, you're going to contaminate two, which makes Sheni Shlishi, and then you're going to be Paisel one, which is a Revi, this question to become Revi. Now, at the same time, with Tama Echad, the place like the Truma, you're going to contaminate one and invalidate one by Truma, because that's going to make it into a Shlishi. Again, right, if you're a Rishon, you contaminate one, that's making it into a Sheni, and the reason I call it Truma is because it can then pass another one, which is Shlishi. And then this is the kicker, this is the main one. If you're a Rishon, you're only going to passel one. But that makes it into a Sheni. So you see, because the Chum ends at Sheni, Chum does not become a Shlishi. Now, the Tana that disagrees on Rebbe Elazar holds that a Rishon of Chulin doesn't go even by Kachim up until a Revi. Because Kachim does not become a Revi only if that Rishon was itself Kachim. Fine, that's those who disagree with Rebbe Elazar. But one thing we learn from this is that Ein Shlishi B'Chulin, Chulin only goes to a Sheni, not to a Shlishi. Tana number 5, Rebbe Eliezer, the Tana in the Mishnah Mesechta Chala. The beginning of that Mishnah, meaning the Mishnah before that, Mesechta Chala says as follows: the shiur of Chala is 1/24 of the dough. Now, if the dough became tamei, which is obviously problematic because Chala is like truma, and if it's tamei, it's obviously usher. So if it was by mistake or it was forced on the person, then we actually say that you only have to separate 1/48 of dough, not 1/24. That means what that is, because anyone's going to get it. Now, if let's say he made it tamei deliberately, so then it's 1/24. The reason for that is what's called the famous Talmudic dictum, shlo yichot niske. We don't want the sinner to gain. You did it deliberately, but by it, we're going to make you take off the right amount of 1/24. Okay, but then that's where the Mishnah continues like this. He says, where the guy deliberately made the chala tamei. So what you have to do is like this. We're gonna make sure that he does it in spite of that. He separates a different dough that's tahar. Okay, and chala nitelis minat ha'ira. You're going to separate chala from the tar dough al ha'tamei on the tamei dough. Now, the problem you run into is like this. Right? Again, the reason why you have to do that is because, again, tamei is chala. Chala would have to be burnt. Since you did deliberately, we're going to make you do like this. We're going to make you take from tar dough a portion of chala to give to the kohen. Because or else, again, if it's truma, which is what chala is, if it's tamei, it's not to be burnt. Problem is, there's what's called mitzvah to take off truma min hamukaf, to take off from what it's connected to.
Connected or what you see?
No, mukaf means that it's surrounded, it's connected. It's like it's together.
Because by my says mukaf means what you see, but connected doesn't make it tumah.
It means mukaf means from what you see, or it's like
By my says same that you see.
Yeah, so it's a question what's considered connecting it exactly, but the way Beleza says it is that it has to be connected. The problem is, says the Mishnah, is that Ketzah, how are you going to take from Mukif that it's connected and it's going to remain Tahar? So says the Mishnah like this. What you do is you take Shtei Isis, you take two doughs, Achas Tahar of Achas Tamei. One is Tahar, one is Tamar. And you're Noitel Kedei Chala. You take the amount of challah that you need to take from the tamei dough, you take it me'isa from the tahar dough until shaloi hurmasa, shaloi hurmer chalasa. Meaning before you took off challah from the tahar dough, you take off the amount of dough that's needed for the tamei dough, because as Rashi explains, if you already had taken challah from the tahar dough, you wouldn't be able to separate anymore from this dough, which is called pot already, on this dough, which is chiyur, which is obligated, and it wouldn't have the title of challah. So before this dough has challah taken from it, challah is nishkenim from them, then you take off this piece of dough, and the nice pachas mikibei be'emtza. You put this dough, this challah, less than the size of an egg, in the middle. Why? Meaning this is going to be the challah. This is going to be what you're separating from this one. But you put a piece of dough less than an egg be'emtza in the middle. K'dei litol min hamukav. Like Rashi said, the word mukav means mechuber, connected, or mechuber, or close by. And we learn from a pasuk that says
mechuber, close by.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on context. It depends on context, but that's what Rashi says. Mechuber or mechuber. Yeah, yeah. So now this is learned from a pasuk. So it says you should take truma from it. So the Sefri Darshans from it means minamukafar, that which is connected to it. So therefore, you need to have that the challah that you're separating has to be near the dough that you're separating it for before you do Kriya Shem, before you say that this is a piece of challah. So how do you do this? So you put into the bowl on one side, and you take from the tahar dough less than the egg, and you put it between the challah that's tahar and the dough that's tummy. And the middle is touching both of them and connecting them. So it's minimal, it's connected. Now, you'll be kriya shem on the challah, and you'll remove it when you're saying the kriya shem of that harezu challah. Now, the fact that the middle piece is less than the size of an egg is therefore not going to be metama the challah. This is the challah. This is what we call an isa taira. This is the challah what's given to the kohen. This is the tamei dough. So although they're both saying the same word, they really mean something else. This is the entire dough that you made. This is the piece that you're taking, giving to the kohen. This is something else. This is a barrier, but it's a connector. It's a barrier and a connector. Because although this piece itself is mekabel tumah, as the Brisa teacher Taras Kohen from the Kol Oichel Asher Yochel comes to teach you that food item can become tummy even as a small amount. But the Brisa, you would think it would contaminate other things also as a small amount. It says no Asher Yochel. The Gemara in the last part of Yoma that Payman Av says, what's something that can be eaten in one shot? What's Asher Yochel? Chacham evaluated that the throat can only contain around the size of an egg of a chicken. So that's the shiur being the time of other things Asher Yochel. So what's unique about this halacha is that you put this third piece that's up until it's less than the size of a kebeya. So now it's connected, but it's a barrier because this is not able to contaminate this. That's how Rabbi says you'll separate challah from the tahar dough for the tamei dough that you made. That's what Rabbi is saying. Now, as we continue with days, Chum say it's forbidden, as we're going to explain shortly their reasoning. Now, the time of learning the Brisa, that actually according to Eliezer, you could even put in the middle kibay. You could actually put in not less than the egg, the size of an egg. Oh, okay. Now, sabrua, meaning in the middle, even though it's a share of an egg, it's not going to be time of the challah before you went and made a kriya shem on this as challah. So, sabrua of the Rabbanan, who are from the Beis Medrash, that wanted to infer from this halacha of Eliezer, he's Tana number 5, that Shani does not make a shlish of achulin. Where they get it from? Oh, because they held idi, both versions of Rabbi Eliezer, whether the one that says in the Mishnah that has to be less than the egg, whether the Brisa we just brought that said that the middle piece could be even the size of an egg. Both of them held the Isa Reishayna. By the dough that's tamei, it's a Rishon L'Tama. And even so, the Eliezer and the Brisa says that the middle piece could be the size of an egg, even though the middle piece is becoming tamei from a Rishon, and thus making it into a Sheni, that's not going to go ahead and make that other dough, the Isa Ta'ega, the Challah, into a Shlishi before you give it a Kriya Shem of Challah.
How do you give it though to the Kohen? Because now the piece becomes taller.
Which one? This piece you're talking about?
No, the
Not the middle. No, that's not the Challah. It's not the Challah. This is the Challah. Yeah.
Which one?
This is the Challah
piece?
Yeah. This is a barrier.
Just a barrier.
Yeah. And it's also connected. It's connecting it, but a barrier at the same time. Now, although that this dough is hulin that is untight. It's what's called tmulin l'chala. It has chala really inside over here. Yeah, because everyone, both Rabbi Eliezer and the Rabbanan, they all hold. B'chulin ha-tmulin l'chala. When you have chulin that's untight chala yet, and you didn't take chala from it yet, like a chala dam. It's not like chala. Meaning this will not have the halacha of shuma on it. Okay. So it says the Gemara like this. My love, isn't it saying like this? What's machlekes from Eliezer and Rabbanan? The Rabbi Eliezer who said that it's permitted to do this thing that I described. Saba he holds ein sheni ois shlishi b'chulin. This dough is a rishon. This dough becomes a sheni. This dough would potentially become a shlishi, but no, it's chulin. Even though it's tabel l'chala, like chala is really like somewhere in here, which chala is truma, which can become a shlishi, but we don't look at it as truma yet, as chala yet. It's chulin. Oh, gewaldig. Even if this becomes tummy because the shiur can bay and it can contaminate further, you can't contaminate because you're chulin. Chulin doesn't go to a shlishi. That's what we're proving from Rabbi Eliezer that he holds that it cannot make a shlishi. Whereas Umar, but the Rabbanan that said you can't do this, Savar Sheni, like shlishi b'chulin, they'll let the Kiva of our Mishnah that a sheni could make a chulin into a shlishi. So that means to say that this challah is becoming tummy before you ever call it challah, even though it's chulin. So it comes out that you're going to be giving to the kohen challah tameya in the presumption that it's tar. Now, the Tana of the Mishnah that said that according to Rabbi Eliezer has to be less than the shiur kebeya. Wait. Why did he say it has to be less than the shiur kebeya? Says Rashi, not because he holds that a sheni is going to make a shlishi. It's because as much as possible we try to diminish the tumah of the middle piece. Because you're not going to stop cause tumah even to chulin. It's only because we have to remedy the truma of challah. That's why we permit to do this procedure. Now, if it's possible to do less than the beya, why would we make something that would be more tumah? Or another approach, says Rashi, is because maybe they're not going to be careful that it shouldn't touch the challah with this middle piece after you do Kriyas Hashem. Meaning, the moment you do Kriyas Hashem, and you chop it away. If this really became Risheni because it's the shiur and it's the shiur kebeya, then suddenly they might touch it if they're not very careful. Then you just made the challah that you separated a shlishi. If it's less than the kebeya, it won't be able to transmit tumah because it's less than the shiur kebeya. So that would be the other reason why they helped to make it less than the kebeya. Because machzar kebeya might run into problem. Now the Chacham say you can't do this even less than the kebeya because maybe you might come to do like the shiur kebeya. And then the middle piece will be metame, and then it will become the challah. So Rashi is just explaining that next step, why the Chacham hold even less than the kebeya, you can't do this procedure, because you might miscalculate, you might make it into kebeya, and it might touch the challah, and it might be a problem. But Al Kapanim says the Gemara, I have my Tana number 5 that says, Ein Sheni Oisesisha B'chulin, and that's why Rabbi Eliezer held that you can do this procedure. Whereas the Chacham held, no, Sheni Oisesisha B'chulin. That's why you can't do it. It says, Amar Amadi B'redi Rabkanan, not necessarily. I can tell you the Kuliyams, that not only Rabbi Eliezer, even the Rabbanan, they hold Ein Sheni Oisesisha B'chulin. Yeah, a Sheni cannot make a Shlish B'chulin. Oh, wait a second. If they hold it cannot make a Shlish B'chulin, so why do they hold that you can't do this procedure? Oh, that's for a different reason. That's why. They disagree regarding when you have chulin that is untight for challah, has truma inside of it. You just didn't separate it. How do we qualify that chulin? Mar Savar, the Rabbanan that say it's forbidden to do this procedure because they hold when you have chulin that has untight challah inside of it, is kechallah damu. We treat like challah ready right now. Oh, so you can't do the procedure because the reason why it's going to make that dough shlishi is not because of chulin, it's because of the truma that's in there. They don't know. Sheni does not make a shlishi of chulin, just like Rabbi Eliezer. The problem is that the untight challah that's inside of it. Whereas the Marasa will like the challah. Whereas Rabbi Eliezer held that no, it's not like challah. The held that's permitted. Or basically, if you want, you could say the kuliyam that actually according to everyone, chulin truma challah that actually means chulin that has untight challah inside of it. No, like the challah. That's not the reason Rabbi. But they can still hold ain't changing the shlish b'chulin. The only Rabbi Eliezer no sheni will not make a chulin into shlish. So wait a second, why do they hold this also? The machlokes is stop. Do we let you, even to remedy the truma, do we let you make chun in Eretz Yisrael? Tell me. Mar Sava, Rabbi Yezer held, you're allowed to make chun in Eretz Yisrael, tame, to the middle piece, so that we could remedy that you could take the challah in the state of Tahara. Whereas a Mar Sava, whereas the reason Rabban that say it's forbidden is because of the middle piece, because you can make it tame because of the dough, which is a rishon, and they hold that no, also you're not allowed to cause tuma l'chul Eretz Yisrael, even because you want to remedy the truma. Now Rashi just finishes off by saying that the time of the Mishnah and the time of the Brisa, point of Eliezer, also disagree on this point. The time of the Mishnah, who said that the middle piece has to be less than the Shivig and Be'eh held, that even though you're allowed to cause Tumah so that we can remedy the Tumah as much as possible, we try to diminish that you shouldn't cause Tumah unnecessarily, and you could do it by making it less than a Gabay. So therefore, when it's a significant amount of Gabay, we say we're not allowed to do that. The time of the Brisa held that since you let it make it, cause it to become tummy, it doesn't make a difference. A large shear doesn't make a difference. A small shear, that even the amount of a Gabay, you're also allowed to cause. Or another approach of Rashi that the time the Mishnah held that maybe the challah might touch the middle piece after you did create a share. And the time the Brisa is not concerned for that, and therefore he says you could even make it a share of a kabeya. So that was time number 5 that held not like Rabbi Kiva and our Mishnah, and they all hold, as we know generally throughout Shas, that ein sheni oisa shlishi bachul. Now we go back to Allah on the Mishnah, which had many boy bayots that we said on that day. The other Rabbi Kiva, another one was a steer we had in the pasuk. On the one hand, the pasuk says by the Ari Levim, it says Madoisim Achutz, you can measure out of the city. It's the Askim Alpayim. Another pasuk says in the Kirei Achutz Elav Am Sav is going to be 1,000 hours. Can't be 1,000. It says 2,000. It can't be 2,000. It says 1,000. So what does that mean? So there was a machlokes in the Mishnah. Rabbi Kiva said, I'll explain to you. Elav Amma was Midrash, empty space to beautify the city. When the pasuk said Alpayim, that refers to the Chom Shabbos, the boundary of the city regarding Shabbos. He said something else. He said, Elfam is Midrash, you can say the empty space. Alpaimam is Sotah Daf, is the other 1,000 amos regarding fields and vineyards. So on that ask our Gemara, but my comithli, what is the machlokes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Lezer Benosh Gluli? Why does Rabbi Kiva say that the 2,000 is Chum? And why does Rabbi Lezer Gluli say that's actually referring to Sotah Daf? So this is actually very important. Halacha is mentioned in Halacha actually very much, and it was mentioned many times in the Sotah Daf. But Mar Savar Kiva held Tchumen Doiraisa. The halacha of Tchumen is biblical, which is very important, obviously, regarding many different halachas of Tchumen, which regarding Yud Beis Mil, what we consider to be Doiraisa. But since it's biblical, so the pasuk can be referring to Tchumen. Umasam Dirabban. They held that the halacha of Tchumen is only rabbinic, so obviously a pasuk is not referring to Tchum Shabbos, it's a rabbinic convention. So that's about like it's regarding what we say the 2,000 is referring to Tchumen or not. Another drasha that was done that day, related to the Allah and the Mishnah of the Az Yosh, which we mentioned. The Brisa just elaborates on this. That day, Rabbi Kiva Darshan, at the time when the Jewish people came out of the Yamsuf, so it sounds like most people, if they watch something, they think it happened when they were in the water. Sounds like here when they came out of the water. So when they came out of the water, they gave their eyes to say shiur. Okay, how did they say shiur? Like a gadol that's reading forth the hal, meaning the chazan who's reading forth to the tzibur that he wants to fulfill their obligation by hal. And they respond to the chapter head, which is halaluka, which is the beginning of the parsha. Meaning, for everything the chazan says, they just say halaluka. As you learn the Mishnah Sotah Daf, that when the chazan obeys, if someone has, let's say, his servant or his wife or a child that's reading forth for him, so he has to answer every word they're saying because they cannot be mitzi. But if the one that's being makri is a gadol, so then you don't have to say the word. You could be yaitzi by listening. You just say halaluka, halaluka.
Isn't there beferish Gemara that said they repeated after Moshe, either in brachas or we recently did it?
So we're going to see that, yeah. So we're going to see that there's different opinions exactly how they did it. One shot is that they would just respond to the Rashi Prakim, as the Brisa actually explains. Moshe, he would say Ashira Lashem, Ashira Lashem, Moshe ki goy go, Ashira Lashem. It's the quiet Ashira Lashem, and everything hallelujah. It's just you're saying the same chapter again and again, but they're hearing all the Yashar from Moshe. That's like a gadol that's makri sahal. He's being mitzi the minion with their chiyuv. They're not saying. That's one pshat. Another pshat, he says actually differently. Not like a gadol. When the child reads forth to you the halal, oh, then you have to say. Let's say someone doesn't know how to read. The child goes to a yeshiva, becomes from. The father doesn't know how to hold the siddur, and he wants to say halal with his son. So there is an adult. He just repeats after the word. But if he's a little kid, he has to say it can't be mighty his father. He has to say every word after him, but he doesn't know how to. So the child says, and then they repeat after him everything that he's saying. So Moshe Shiur Hashem, Shiur Hashem. Moshe Kigoy. So this pshat holds no that actually they repeated every single phrase, the words that he said. Different pshat. A third pshat, the Nechemia he says kisayfer, like a school teacher of young children who he's always in shul. He's hapoidus al shema b'beis hakneses, who he does Krisa Shema. The word Pyrus, it means like the half before the month. I mean before the Yom Tov. Rashi says you're like but it's like when you say half of it's like when someone comes late to shul, that they say like certain brachas of Shema, and you have one guy being mitzi on it with Baruch. So he's like Pyrus al Shema b'beis hakneses for 10 people that have gathered. Which how does that work? Shehu Pesach Chila, that he opens up first, but then they respond after. As Rashi brings, the Gemara Shkolim, that he starts the brachas before Krishma, and they are oin acharav, they respond after him, and then they all say it together. And that's how the Ruach HaKodesh rested on all of them by the Yom Tov, that they all focus together the same words of the shiur as it's written. So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu starts, and then they respond to him, and then they all said it together. That's the third mahal. So again, either Moshe Rabbeinu said everything, and they just said the Rosh Hashanah, or they repeated everything after him, or no, he started, they responded, and then they all said it together. So think about Mike, what's the machlekes over here in this rice? So the Gemara goes through and explains that the keeper said he held. Said, and they said Lema, Ashir Hashem and so on. What's Lema? I mean, they said Lema. Oh, it means Anusik HaMaisa. It means on the first thing that Moshe Rabbeinu said, meaning it said, Lema Ashir Hashem. They said, Azoy Tzedogin, Bos Dogin Min, Ashir Hashem. So they were always saying Ashir Hashem. That's like the Godel Hamaki. That's how. Basically, somebody held no. Lema means Akom Milsa Milsa. Lema Azoy Tzedogin, Moshe Rabbeinu Gizok, and everything he said, Azom Zegizok. They said the same thing. The Chemis they hold no. Vayoimaru, they said, is going on Moshe B'nai Yisrael. Sounds like the Amav Kulu Bahadi Hadad. That they all said together. So what's Lema? Oh, Lema is just the pasuk Moshe B'nai Yisrael. It just means that Moshe B'nai opened up first. And what the pasuk is saying is, Vayoimru, they all said together after they were permitted Lema to say, after the Chacham opened up by saying, that's like you have the Sefer has Peiras al Shema B'beis HaKnesses. He starts off. Everyone responds, and then they say it together. That's how the third pshat of how they said the Al Josh. Now, talking about a related teaching, then the Bryce of Rabbi Shloimy said that the Shor Sha'ol Yisrael Ben Hayam, when the Jewish people came out of the Yam Suf, they closed their eyes to say a song to Hashem. The kids on the Shira, how do they say Shira? So you had a toddler, Mutla Birke Imar, that was laying on the mother's leg. The tinnik gurnik can stay imar. You had an infant suckling from the mother's breast. Once they saw the divine presence, so the toddler lifted up his neck. The tinnik shomat dad nepiv, and the infant removed the nipple from his mouth. They said, This is my God, and I will glorify him. What says? Hashem says the pasuk in Tehillim. Mipi oilul in beyankim. As Rashi explains, oilul is bigger than a yain. And we find the pasuk Shmuel oilul ba'yain. That's how people usually talk. They say from the more chashuv to the lesser one, like from shiur that said. So you see that oilul is older than a yain. So oilul is maybe like a toddler, or a young child, maybe infant. That's a baby, however you say it. But from the mouths of oil and beyankin, you start to oil, you establish strength. You see that Ozzy with Zimras Ka, the eyes was coming from the oil and the beyankin, and they said Zekil Rameh. Now here the mayor said actually, how do you know how do you know that even the fetuses in the mother's womb said shiur? Which places brings is not like that the other Tanakh disagree with this. How do you know that even fetuses said shiur? No, it says the pasuk in Jeremiah between the time of Laman Al. Says the Makehelos, when they gathered on the Yam Suf, both Velikim Hashem, they blessed Hashem the God, the Makar Yisrael, from the source of the Jewish people, which the uterus is called the Makar. It's the source of the Jewish people. Even from there, they Yizog Shira to the Banishwa. I didn't see. So the Talmud says no, Keres Nasa Lahem. The mother's stomach became Kaspaklaga Hamakiva, like a translucent screen. You know, when they saw out of the mother's stomach, and they were able to say the Azyasha. Now the Gemara continues, to finish really to the end of the parak. Boy Bayan Darish Rabbi Shloimy ben Hogan. That day, Shloimy ben Hogan is Darshan. So over Iyavakul, one of the drushes were made that Iyav only served God out of love, not out of fear. Says but what happened was like the Gemara, the Mishnah said, it says in the pasuk, "Came to kill him. Well, he to kill me, lo yayacha." It's still your infant. But in the Mishnah, the words were, "By then I did a shachar," but yeah, I'm still not sure. What does it mean, lo yayacha? Does lo yayacha mean lo medavav, lo yani mitzape, that to him I'm still yearning, or does it mean lo medavav? Lo yayacha. I'm not gonna look forward to it. That's why the Mishnah says, "Oh, I have another pasuk. I think well, they also do the man. We learned that he did it out of love." Thank you, Gemara is verstehen. But let's see, hi loy. Look at the pasuk. Even lamed aleph. If it's with an aleph, loy, it means no. I'm not going to hope for him anymore. That means he didn't serve him out of love. Even lamed vav ksiv loy. If it's with a vav, it means to him. So why are you saying that it's shakel, that you're still not sure from the pasuk? Look how it's spelled. Says the Gemara, back to the questioner. Simple lamed aleph. You think whenever it says lamed aleph with the aleph loihu, it means no? And if that's the case, let's take up a pasuk in Yeshaya. Pasuk says, "B'chol tzarasam loy tzar." In all the difficulty, with an aleph, no pain. So lamed aleph, it says with aleph. You think it means no? That Hashem is not in pain with their pain? The chitim of the beginning think that really means yeah, it means no. And the pasuk say Hashem is not concerned for their pain, and he's not in pain with them. But it says over there in Yeshaya, it says a malach panav Hashem. The malach in front of him sees them. Obviously Hashem feels their pain. So you see, I feel a statement that aleph made yah. Rather, no, you're right. Mashma mashma. You're right. Okay. Lamed aleph mit an aleph can mean no, or it can mean to him. And that's why we're shuffled. Because even though lo yachil would be with an aleph, I still wouldn't know. It could mean either one. And therefore, you have to bring another pasuk to show that he was serving Hashem from love. Now, tell you in the Brisa, like Rabbi Yehuda and Zaka in the Mishnah, who held that no, he actually only served Hashem out of fear. Says the Gemara, Rameir said, "Nemi yirei elikim be'iyus." It says in the pasuk in Eve that he was a God fear. Nemi yirei elikim ba'Avram. It says ba'Avram Avinu. So he says, Rameir says, just like we know Avram served God from love, and he called him Yirei Elikim. So too when it says that he feared God, it means out of love. Now the question of Avram Gudim, how do you know Avram himself served Hashem out of love? So the passage in Yeshaya, it says, Zer Avram Oyavi. the children of Avram, my beloved. So he served them out of love. He says, what's the difference about someone who serves God from love to someone who serves God from fear? Because the time you have the following that it says in the Bryce. It says, greater is the one that serves God from love than the one who serves God from fear. Why? Because you serve God from fear, that suspends, meaning that's a merit for the future generations to protect them up until Le'elafdar, for 1,000 generations. But the Zeb, you do it out of love, it suspends it for 2,000 generations. How do you know? Because Hachik says over here in Pasuk in Shemais, where it says, Ba'isa chesed, Hashem does kindness la'alofim for 2,000. Lo'oyavei, to those who love me, will Hashem mitzvahs, and to those who keep my mitzvahs. So you see that those who do me'ahava, it's on pi, 2,000. There it says in the bottom, and for those who keep his mitzvahs, la'elater, for 1,000 generations. Those who do it out of fear. So you see that Oisim Ahava is 2,000, but the Oisim Yida is only 1,000. Make the Gemara was haste. Hasanamik said there also says Lo Oyhava, that was for those who love will Hashem mitzvahs and love dar. So it says there also Lo Oyhava, and it's only saying $1,000. Gemara no high with the samachlet. High with the samachlet. By Oyhava, in the first pasuk, it's near the word Allah. In the other pasuk, Le'elav dar is near the word Shem mitzvahs, which is Niyira. So therefore, that's why we say the one the word me'av is 2,000 generations, and the year is only 1,000. And Rashi just points out that this that we're talking about here in this sugya of doing for God out of love or out of fear is not the same thing that we said on the Chombeis and Mabeis, that those are lift of Krusha me'av of the year, because that's talking about the love of reward and the fear of punishment of the curses and the punishment. Here we're talking about love for Hashem and fear of Him, of His greatness, which is on the creations. That's fundamentally higher level that we're talking about. And the Gemara finishes off with a story. There were these two students, Rabbi Yossi that were sitting in front of Rabbi. One said to my they recited for me in my dream a pasuk until how great is your goodness that you put away for those who fear you. The other one said in my dream they said that all those who take refuge in you will rejoice. They will always sing. And the end of the pasuk, and they will rejoice in you, those who love your name. He said to them, you're both totally righteous rabbis. One serves God out of love, one serves God out of fear. That's what people are talking about. And again, these are two appropriate ways to serve Hashem. Which return to you the fifth parak in the Sotah, parak Shem Shamayim, which you can start the next parak, which you can in the next.
But then only the elephant.
He's scared of the head and that's probably the shortest pair
the
of
lights,
shots.
the
I thought it was going to be a short
perhaps like 200-300
one block.
generations only.
Maybe
I don't know.
Or maybe
We only took
Right?
they knew it.
I thought it was getting ready for something.
I don't know if you're blessed with 200 or 300 generations. Another question. If a little family,
One
question
per dollar.
what happened? A rich one touches a kid. It becomes soap. Now, what happened is let's say a pile of flour. So I touch the edge of the pile. Can I just chop off the beginning and that's all it would be kosher?
right. So that's what you want to discuss and view that as one.
So here is why it's important. That is, once it touches, it might become one is.
Yeah, the dough. Well, that's the dough.
So what makes it right? What? So if the flour, you could say, okay, you can make 2 piles flowers and one pile touches the other flower, they'll be it's a pile. Where does it begin? When does it end?
It would seem like that. These are two different pieces, right?
So the touching of the same means